Good morning and welcome to Witchin Wednesday. This is episode 6. We are discussing today spiritual protection. I think that provides a nice round experience of some of the first steps that you take out on a path, kind of covers some overview, some important topics. So, our society kind of conditions us to be really afraid in general. It's a very effective marketing strategy to convince people that there is a scarcity and jack up the price of the item that you're selling. And we spent many years in the shadow of a church state. And though here in the United States, we would like to at times think that we have gotten away from such an environment where there is a church state. And we love to believe in our First Amendment rights to freedom of religion. Um, However, that freedom of religion is much freer if you happen to conform to the church of the state. Um, we are much more quote unquote free if we are adhering to the bonds of conformity and following the doctrine of the church state. So I think that we have in name, but not in practice, a free religious country. And I've been able to see that play out in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different environments throughout my life, as I'm sure you have as well. Um, that being said, the church state sells its spiritual liberation through convincing you to be afraid. Um, you are afraid of eternal torment. You are afraid of hellfire and damnation. You are afraid of defying social norms. You are afraid of deviating from gender norms and customs. You are afraid of speaking loudly. You are afraid of wearing the wrong clothes, of styling your hair incorrectly, of believing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. Afraid. That creates a culture of dependency on the structures that are coming along to save you. So when you decide to be not afraid, as the angels say, and you decide to bravely set foot on your own path and choose to set aside any dogma, set aside anything that tells you that something must be a certain way, set aside anything that makes you feel afraid in your bones, as though you were not divinely placed here, divinely guided, divinely supported in a garden of your own joy, your own Eden, your own food, your own medicine, your own happiness, your own beauty, your own creative joy. Anything that takes you from that feeling, anything that robs you of that sense of security and safety, you can ask yourself, why do I believe that is so? And that becomes very important to the discussion of spiritual protection. Um, we are conditioned not only to fearfulness, because it is an excellent marketing strategy, it makes us excellent little taxpayers. We are also conditioned to powerlessness. We are conditioned to outsource our salvation, our spiritual protections, our guidance, and our authority to external structures. to a figurehead who has the ultimate say on whether we are good or whether we are bad, or whether we will be rewarded or whether we will be punished, whether we shall be liberated or condemned. All of that power we seat on a throne that exists outside of ourselves, and that is what we have been conditioned to do. That is what society would prefer for us to do. We would need to ask another to intervene with the divine on our behalf. We would pray and beg and flay ourselves in atonement to be punitive, to be good servants. This is a perversion of our energy centers. The fearfulness, the scarcity is a perversion of our root chakra. It is a perversion of the truth, which is that the earth is abundant, the universe is limitless. You are limitless. You are abundant. You are already enough. You already have all that you need. You do not need to struggle and strive in order to reach out to someone else to give you what you already are. A powerlessness structure is subverts the solar plexus chakra, our power center, our inner fire, our inner flame, our inner will, our inner creative ability, our inner activist, our inner advocate, our campaigner. It serves a structure where a minute percentage are elite, powerful, and privileged, and the rest of us are slaves. We give all of our vital resources, our time, our effort, our energy, our money, our attention to a system that denies us health, happiness, security, the bonds of community. It tells us how we may structure our homes, where we may place them, how we may build them, how big is the boundary of the land in which we can forage and plant our food. We must pay for the land. We must pay for the food. We must pay for the water. It's illegal to collect rainwater in 11 states. It is illegal to collect water that falls from the sky. It is illegal to possess plants that grow in the ground. It's an assault on our sovereignty. It's an assault on the land, and it's an assault on us. And we willingly outsource our power to it. We say, thank you for protecting us from the dangerous water from the sky. Thank you for protecting us from the evil plants. Thank you for granting us this small plot of land. We will all live on top of each other in these big buildings. We will pay you we will pay you handsomely for the privilege. We will live in these cities which block out the stars and block out the skies with their light pollution. So if you choose to exit this sense of fear, this sense of scarcity, this sense of powerlessness, this demonization of your desire, of your wants, of what feels authentically correct and fulfilling for you, makes you afraid of yourself, makes you afraid of your own instinctual, intuitive, and powerful nature. How do you feel safe? Right? When you've been conditioned to feel powerless and when you've been conditioned to feel afraid, should you choose to be brave and turn that narrative on its head and go forth into the world, autonomous, sovereign, and self-directed, how do you obtain a sense of safety? What powers do you have? What powers can you call upon when you do not feel that you are in possession of them? Um, So, and this is kind of a roundabout way of looking at it, but most of the things that we are afraid of, I think it's so funny because it's not the things that are actually dangerous to us. It's usually the things that appear dangerous. So the things that are dangerous to us include our government and our capitalist overlords. Our fellow human beings are often what is dangerous to us. But we fear ghosts and spirits and monsters above all else. We fear a punishment for a soul that no one can confirm happens, and many people attest does not happen. And it's quite the opposite. The only evidence that we have is the accounts of people, many people who have experienced near-death experiences or who have died and been brought back to life, let alone all of the people who can recall their previous lives. We have a mountain of evidence to support reincarnation, and we have exactly zero evidence to support the theory that there is any kind of eternal salvation or eternal damnation for the soul. And it defies science, right? So, and energy is conserved, the conservation of energy. It doesn't conserve energy to have any kind of eternal stasis. It is an aberration of nature to think that there is any kind of eternal stasis for the soul, that there is any resting place for the soul. Energy is in motion. It is always in motion. It will always remain in motion. The only time that it stops is at the end of all things. That being said, got all this evidence for reincarnation. Logic would say that our souls are energy that is constantly in motion. Well, what do we know about energy? If we're speaking of energy, I had a good thought about Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. So energy on one side of the equation, matter on the other. You have to multiply matter by an incomprehensible number, the speed of light squared. The speed of light times itself is the amount of matter that you would need to equal the amount of energy that is contained in each of your particles. In every bit of yourself, there is so much more energy than there is substance. So inherently, the most spiritual things that we have, that we can see or see, are the things that have substance, because substance holds the most energy. So it baffles my senses that what we fear are spiritual entities instead of material ones. The material ones have more spiritual power than anything immaterial can contain. And so when I say that I believe that you are the most fearsome and powerful entity in your home and in your life and in the world, I truly believe that is true. In every fiber of your being, in all of your trillions of cells and uncountable, you are an infinite source of energy in each of your atoms, in each of your particles, in all of the spaces between is energy. You are a battery that is constantly renewing itself. Every time you breathe in air, you're drawing in more energy. Every time the sun or light touches your skin, you're drawing in more energy. Your cells emit light on the infrared spectrum. You are a radiant being, a source of energy, a source of light. You are an incarnate spiritual entity of your own. It is a misperception to see anything incarnate, to see anything in matter and of matter as being absent of spirit is a misperception, and it is a misunderstanding. So if you are the most haunting spiritual entity in your home, you simply need to believe that is true. You simply need to know that is true. So it's thinking of things as a door and understanding the power of belief and the power of your consciousness and the power of your applied intention. If you are afraid and in a fearful state, you contract your energy and contract your aura, right? You are not projecting outward, right? You are not using your spiritual power toward the attainment of any of your intentions, any of your manifestations. You're withdrawn, right? Like a kicked puppy. It's not easy to recover from a contracted state like that, but it is possible and it is relatively simple. So it takes believing in yourself, right? Believing in yourself is not a easy task necessarily, but it is a simple one, right? And it is a powerful one. So when I was first starting out on this path, I came across this wonderful treasure. Well, it was a couple of wonderful treasures. So um, there was a book that I came across called Psychic Self-Defense, written by the late Diane Fortune. And she is an excellent occult author. When it comes to esoteric studies, the hidden arts, the hidden sciences, there is no inherent, like, newer is not inherently better. So, um, and the same can be said for older. And you have the freedom to choose. There's no Bible, there's no one source, there's no one book that will tell you how to live your life. Um, that is left up to you, and you are accountable for the way that you live your life. So, my recommendation from my experience is that you read from many sources and reference many sources, opposing sources if you can, where you can. Study the new alongside the old, right? And study, competing ideologies and competing thoughts, because it, like having two eyes, allows you to see in three dimensions. Having multiple perspectives allows you to see depth to the issue. So what you end up discovering is that, the universe is not mutually exclusive. So where you have two mutually exclusive beliefs, you have two incorrect beliefs. But you can use the two incorrect beliefs in order to cast light on the correct belief that they're both misperceiving. So, one eye shows you two dimensions, the other eye shows you two dimensions. What you're seeing is three dimensions, but you can't perceive that third dimension until you compare them. So, I often suggest that you try to get as many different perspectives as you can on something and come to your own conclusions. I'm here just to share my perspective. It works for me. So, I encourage you to find what works for you. The book Psychic Self-Defense by Diane Fortune, it really speaks to discovering your own power and your own light from within. And in her time of writing it, we had not been directly able to measure the light that is emitted from the human body. And I think that's quite interesting when you study the old alongside the new, is that you discover that within the old is everything that we're discovering in the new. So, known to humans for thousands of years have been the things that we're discovering or rediscovering now, but they were not privy to a large group of people. That's why they call it esoteric, because it's hidden, it's occult. So the truth has always been available to some who seek it and who recognize it. But all were not ready or capable of handling that. Once again, you have a 1% to 99% kind of elite versus enslaved sort of populations. And um, but what's interesting is when you compare that old with the new, you can see some of the truth that is woven underneath of it. So the newer, and it's not new any longer, but Silver Ravenwolf had a book, Silver's Spells for Protection. And between reading Silver's Spells for Protection and Diane Fortune's Psychic Self-Defense, I came to kind of a practical exercise. And I recommend this practical exercise to sort of work towards those previously mentioned goals, the things that are easy but aren't, or that are simple but aren't necessarily easy. So speaking to empowering yourself and being unafraid, right? Um, in a lot of our new age spiritual mindset, there's this kind of attachment to love and light as being the way, the white way, and that's a fear-based ideology. Um, and it disowns pieces of yourself. That's what's known as spiritual bypassing. But it does have a core truth, which is that when we are in balance, we are able to operate from our heart center. And our heart generates a large magnetic field, but our heart generates a larger magnetic field through truth and authenticity by what is it, 50 times? I forget the actual measurement that they did, but a great deal larger magnetic field is generated in your aura when you are being truthful and when you are being authentic than when you are being loving. That doesn't devalue love. Love is an important facet of human existence. But an attachment to a love and light mentality is a spiritual diabetes, right? It is the sweetness that will sicken, um, and the truth will set you free. So um, it is kind of unbalanced to neglect the darker aspects of life and to acknowledge grief and anger and sadness and all of the darker feelings in life is the shadows that add contrast and that add depth and that bring our experience into 3 dimensions. That being said, when you carry that powerlessness and when you carry that fear and when you carry that guilt and when you carry that shame, you are not alone. That is a symptom of a collective disease and discomfort. That is a facet of our existence that many, if not most of us possess. It is a conditioning that has been embedded into our culture and our society because it is an effective conditioning that gets results. It keeps the power structures stable, secure, and in power. It keeps the rich rich and the poor poor and the powerful powerful and the disempowered disempowered. So anytime you want to step outside of that structure, it can be inherently terrifying, and that's not just you. However, you don't do so alone, and you don't do so without support. So these power structures, a lot of people will call it the Matrix. I think that the actual movie series, The Matrix, was trying to enlighten people to this reality that is affecting them, because often that is how the change is seated in human consciousness and in human society, as it first shows up in literature. It first shows up in science fiction and then it becomes reality. It is one of the ways that we condition people to believe in things that are true when our belief structures have been toxic or diseased for so long. Um, And so, not every person that subscribes to a toxic ideology does so from a bad place or is a bad person. Frankly, I think that good and bad are not useful words. Everything just is. Nothing is inherently good or inherently bad. It just exists. It just is a thing. It is a way that we project our judgment on the thing. Um, like we look at grass and we say, that's green. Well, it's not green, it's grass. It appears green to those of us who can perceive the color green, and it doesn't appear green to those of us who cannot. And God knows what grass would look like to a shrimp with, 12, what is it, 12 or 16 different rods and cones in their eye. Their color vision is vastly superior to ours. That grass is not green, the sky is not blue, the grass is, and the sky is, and our perception colors it. Our perception says that that is the way that it is. Saying that it is green or saying that it is blue might be a useful way to communicate our experience of that thing to one another, and that is as much as can be said about it. So ridding yourself of good and bad is probably going to be very useful for you because you are neither good nor bad. Things are neither good nor bad. They just are, right? What is CO2 would poison us, but the trees breathe it in. And oxygen is the expiration of the tree, but it is our inspiration. So nothing is inherently good or bad. That is a judgment that we use to affect a conformity of behavior across populations. It is something that we do to get other people to do what we want. It's something that we say to enforce compliance through threat of force. So, when it comes to things that are liberating or spiritually enlightening, good and bad is not useful. Love and light is incomplete. We say, know thyself. Know that you are light and darkness. You are light and shadow. Without darkness and without shadow, you would have no light. As far as we can tell, the universe is mostly what we're calling right now dark energy, which just means that it is mostly energy that we don't know anything about. It is in the dark. And when we demonize the unknown, we discourage thinking, we discourage exploration, we demonize information and knowledge as the root of all sin. And that is absolutely mind boggling. So, when we know ourselves and when we are standing in our authenticity and standing in our truth, we have reclaimed our power and we become unafraid. We become what the angels would have us to be, which is empowered and sovereign and true. And we become capable of advocating for what we know is right in the face of any amount of diseased opposition. We become confident in ourselves and what we know and what we have to offer and what we believe is true, and we can use that power to achieve a great deal for ourselves and for everyone we touch. So when you are looking for spiritual protection, ultimately you don't need to look any further than the inside and the contents of your own body. However, I understand that that takes practice and that takes work to uncover layers of um, systematic abuse and disempowerment, and to recover what you authentically possess inside. and to rediscover yourself and to know what you are capable of and the change you are capable of affecting. So back to Diane Fortune's book. One of the things that I took from the experience of reading it and have cultivated in the many years since to a point where it's become affected by my own experience, my own practice, and my own additional reading. But sources given where sources should be given. The original thought was seated there. Um, so it's a meditative practice, and I'm going to be moving pretty immediately from this sequence onto a sequence that kind of helps you with meditation, because meditation is the fundamental tool that you'll be able to learn and to be able to use that will help you to understand yourself, to know yourself, and to empower yourself, and to protect yourself, and to lead yourself, and heal yourself, and guide yourself. All of your own fundamental spiritual power comes from meditation. So, if you would like to progress whatsoever in any type of spiritual practice or spiritual discipline, wherein you do not need to outsource your protection, your divinity, and your guidance, then it is essential that you discover a form of meditation that helps you to learn and get to know yourself better. And there are as many different forms of meditation as there are people. So there's one that will work for you if you are willing to cast aside a victim mentality enough to try and fail and learn and grow. But this particular visualization exercise I found profoundly helpful in a spirit in empowered spiritual protection, which is that you close your eyes and you find within yourself the source of your light, your magnetism, your radiance, your spiritual power, the fire of your life force, your breath, your energy, that ember, that glow that keeps you going, that keeps you warm, that keeps you vital, that keeps you alive. You discover not only that internal spark and that internal source within yourself, but you find the way that it is fed. There are tendrils of flame, rivers of fire, tubes of picture 'em plasma, lightning, whatever. However you visualize is good for you. And if you're not someone that can call visual images to mind, perhaps this is a felt sensation, using the word warmth, using the word energy, right? How does energy feel like to you? What does warmth feel like to you? Where does your power center reside? Many people find that it resides in their solar plexus area, just beneath the rib cage and just above the navel. Some people find it in the third eye. Perhaps it doesn't have a physical location, but you find that spark, right? And then you tend it and you warm it and you grow it, right? And you don't grow it from within yourself, you grow it from your surroundings. A tree does not grow from the energy in its acorn. It grows from the nutrients in the soil, from the sunlight, from the water, right? So don't become a closed system who is attempting to fan the flames using the kindling of your own self, right? Expand your system. Allow yourself to receive supplemented energy from without. Reach tendrils like roots down through the bottom of your feet and into the soil and suck up the energy that you need in order to protect yourself. And allow the warmth and energy to come down from the sky, from the sun, from the stars, Our sun has the heliosphere, which protects us from the ambient radiation and the universe. Without it, we would fry and would have no atmosphere on this planet. Our Earth's magnetic field protects us from the radiation from our sun. Without it, we would fry and we would not be able to be alive on this planet. The ambient energy in the universe around us is so extreme that our life is protected by us being shielded from it. So there is an abundant source of energy out there that you can intentionally reach out to, and it is infinite. However much you need, you may receive. I give you permission. Reach down, reach out, draw that in, and then expand that light, expand that flame. You create something like a bubble around yourself. Maybe that's what you see. Maybe you create a magnetic field around yourself, and you get to decide what is within it and what is without. And you cultivate that by weaving that boundary, right? It doesn't have to be harsh like an electric fence that shocks anyone that touches it. It can be soft like a light that says, I will be treated divinely. I will be treated sacredly. I am worthy. I am safe. I am protected. I am abundant, right? You can weave those affirmations into this exercise. And this bubble and this sphere, when you are in it, when you have called it into being, you're safe from all ill will, from all malady and harm, right? Not from that which is sent to aid your growth and make you stronger, unfortunately. When we grow plants and we don't provide them with enough storms and enough wind, then they are unsuitable to survive in their environment. Now, this bubble of light is not going to render you unsuitable to survive in your environment. You will still experience the full range of what it is to be alive and what it is to be human, including some of the harder and more difficult experiences in life. However, you will be safe from well, it's a bit like the spell that we all cast on the playground that says that I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. So think about that, right? That's a spell. You can weave that into your bubble, right? You can be like, if you picture a prism with light coming through and casting a rainbow out, you can filter what comes through your bubble in order to refract and send away those rays of experience that you don't want coming your way and extract and take in the aspects of that intention that you would like. So you can create a bubble around yourself where any energy that comes my way is energy, and I get to decide how it is used. So anybody who thinks of me as a fan and I'm using their energy toward my own benefit, they don't get to say what that energy is used for. And if they choose to send it my way, I will use it as I see fit. These are just options for spiritual protection. And what I learned and what I practiced with that light exercise was the ability to maintain it day or night, waking or sleeping. It's difficult to practice and maintain, but it requires awareness, right? So, um, as you go about your day, anytime that you notice that this protection has fallen, bring it back into being and hold it as long as you can. And anytime that and check it in the morning, check it in the evening, anytime that you're feeling out of control of yourself, right? Call the light back into being. Call your spiritual protections back into being. It will take time, a great deal of time, but eventually those protections remain in place through the night. You wake up in the morning and they're still there. You can eventually get to a point where you can keep those protections on yourself and on others. I have I protect myself and I protect my children. When they first came into this world, having inherited some of my gifts and some of my sensitivities, but being born, well, Violet at least, being born during a time where I was deeply closeted in my practice, my marriage was not a safe place for me. Um, it took me weeks before I realized that the reason that she was so colicky was because she was capable of perceiving energy and perceiving spirits, and that she didn't have that protection in place. So I bathed her in her own sphere of light, and she stopped screaming. There was no more colic. It was the solution to our sleepless weeks. And it, you know, I didn't have that problem with my son because I already knew to keep him safe and to keep him protected in that way. And with practice, I became able to maintain those spheres of protection on my children wherever they are, however distant they may be from me, whether waking or sleeping. And that is a possibility that can come to you with practice. Because that's a tool that takes so much time to cultivate, I also advocate for developing relationships with other spiritual entities. So, one of the most helpful and the easiest to partner with when you are new on your path are symbols and stones and herbs, things of the earth. Once again, coming back to that first statement, where anything material contains a great deal of spiritual energy, things of the earth have a great magnitude of spirit inherent within them. So when you carry a stone that is known for protection, without the conscious application of your energy, it is doing the work and following your intention. Um, Showing respect to the earth and respect to stones is an important part of being able to partner with them, certainly. But it has been my experience that stones in particular generally wish to partner with us. They wish to work with us. The consciousness of stones operates on a time scale that is so profoundly longer than our lifespans and our consciousness that it's almost incomprehensible and steady. And they're the grandmothers of the grandmothers, the grandfathers of the grandfathers. They are wise and they are ancient, and they are alive, especially things with a crystalline structure. It was interesting. I watched a video by a geologist that was talking about, when we say what is alive and what isn't, we have a particular set of criteria that we apply in order to determine whether something is alive. And most of those criteria apply to crystals. We just kind of have a hard time wrapping our mind around that because, we are the gnats in this instance. So the consciousness of the gnat that lives for 3 days or whatever, reproduces and then dies in the scheme of our lifespan is a bit like our consciousness trying to relate to the consciousness of rocks. It's not it's not through a lack of their intelligence and their consciousness that we're incapable of it's a lack on our part, right? It's a lack of awareness and a lack of consciousness on our part that creates the gap there. So the solution to that is simply humility, right? Is to understand that human beings are new here. We're children here on this planet. And we have to show a certain amount of respect to the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the life forms that were here long before us. Um, However, when we have that sense of humility and we show that sense of respect and we tentatively reach out to the spirit of the stones as a child might on the knee of an elder, I have found that they are profoundly willing to help us. They're just like, oh yes, child, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm here for. Just don't you worry about a thing. Thank you for you know, showing respect. Um, but so this is a one of the stones that I like to work with, and that the energy of the stone that partners best with my kind of intelligence. And so this is a snowflake obsidian. And this is a polished snowflake obsidian. And I really like to work with snowflake obsidian. It is a nice blending of the light and the dark. And it just partners really well with me. To make it easier for you, most protective stones are black. Not all protective stones are black, but most are. If you have a black stone, it can be used for protection. Um, it would be beyond the scope of this particular talk to really get into why, but I can give like an overview, I guess. The feminine power, one of the feminine powers in manifestation is to conceal, is to protect, right? The womb keeps us safe, keeps us concealed. Darkness of the earth protects seeds through the winter until they can sprout. It is a spiritual principle that is evident in the world around us, that things which are black and things which represent darkness and represent the unknown represent protection and concealment. Right. So we are tapping into that correspondence when we are using stones that are black, and using the color black in order to protect us. So that is why any of the stones that are black will have that correspondence for protection, and you can get to know the stones. Go to a crystal shop or a crystal show, or go to the beach and dig on the ground. And feel which ones call to you. So obsidian, jet, onyx, tourmaline, they will all have kind of like a different energy to you. You might like a smoky quartz, you know. This is one of them that I also particularly enjoy is tourmalinated quartz, which is actually quartz that has shards of black tourmaline in it. And I actually I have that and hematite as well. So another thing that you can use beyond stones, although it is something that I would caution not necessarily great to approach as a beginner, perhaps, although trust your own intuition over my, once again, be not afraid. I just, in my experience, it is better to start approaching some of the higher order elemental allies a little bit further along. Stones are pretty friendly to beginners, but trying to approach devas or some of the more elemental nature spirits might be a little bit more cautious towards. However, um, gargoyles. Gargoyles are fiercely protective, especially of locations, genus loci. So this is my home's gargoyle, and I actually place offer. That's why I had those stones there. It's just a thing that I have in place in the north in my home. Is my home's gargoyle, and I give the stones as offerings to this gargoyle, and gargoyle spirits are profoundly protective. And so, he has a snowflake obsidian, a tourmalinated quartz, a hematite, and a labradorite. Um, and that is basically designed to not only ward off any ill intent that comes this way, but also to allow me to be aware of it and to see it clearly for what it is. Because not only do you want to be protected from things coming your way spiritually, you want to take physical action, which comes from awareness, right? If you have a person in your life who is directly attempting to undermine what it is that you would see for yourself, that person doesn't belong in your life. So having that element of labradorite in there to connect with the psychic sight and awareness, it is a little bit of my weaving with that particular craft work, that I become aware of the people in my life who are cause for distress, dis-ease, or discomfort in my life. Um, so not only can you work towards that spiritual protection of light that you can call upon. You can also partner with stone allies who are already doing that work and already attempting to help you. If you develop a strong enough relationship and you become adept enough with the practice, you can actually anchor that light work and that particular protection to a stone. So I've done that with my property, with my home, is actually I have anchored in my home protections on a couple of large stones that I'm blessed to possess. And I keep them in my landscape, so they're routinely recharged with sun and moonlight as well as rainwater. Um, so that stops me from needing to continually feed into that work at home. It allows me to just be more comfortable and to be able to relax at home. Um, it's also part of the like if you're energy sensitive and you go in a place that has those sort of protections in place, it that perceptible feeling of there being an energy of place of a place you're in of being kind of strange and powerful, like you can perceive the feelings of being in a place where that's anchored. Um, and among people who are, out of alignment, even at times can cause distress being in those fields. Um, so it's interesting to note that there have been times in my life where um, I have used my home protections to identify people in my life who don't belong in my life. Typically, I have them in a very grounding and sort of welcoming and hospitable sort of way. But um, if you walk into my home and walk through my protections and are immediately having physical symptoms like, headaches and nausea and other problems, it can be a sign that your intention and your manifestation is out of alignment with what's healthy and safe and protective for me. And I say that not to frighten you, but more to be an idea that you can have for your own home and your own space and your own protections. You can be tipped off by who comes into your house, by whether they're good for you or not, by whether they're a good person to have in your life or not, in the way that you ward your home, um, and in the way that your allies and your spirits and your guides communicate with you. They can let you know about things. Um, that being said, you can also use symbols. Symbols are pretty beginner friendly. Look into the meaning of the symbol, not the fear propaganda around the symbol. Look into the meaning of the symbol. So the pentacle or the pentagram is a powerfully protective symbol, and it calls upon the forces of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, and it's all contained within the circle. It is a boundary. It is a boundary token and symbol. You can call upon the pentagram for protection at any point in time. When you're doing that, you're calling upon the forces of nature and calling upon your place in the cosmos as being one of divine right and sovereignty. Um, you can call upon another good one is the Triskel. If that is good for you, it is the triple spiral or the triquetra, which is the triple yoni. Um, and those are, the bonds of the lower world, the upper world, the middle world, land, sea, and sky. Those are the bonds in triplicate, the time where self and other meets and creates the third thing, which is the relationship between self and other, between one and two becoming something that exists both within and without them, or the place where we as incarnate humans meet the divine. Um, and you can call upon herbs if you work with herbs. You can call upon water if you work with water. It's really interesting because I was researching this week and I wanted to share a couple of thought processes with you that I thought were interesting. And in that There's superstitious beliefs that don't pan out when you look at them more closely, when you take them under a microscope. So glass is non-porous. Glass contains, right? And glass has been used in we use it in chemistry and in science because of its resistance to caustic materials. It's a very safe material to contain a number of different reactions because you can dissolve metal in acid and the acid will not eat through the glass, right? Um, but it's important to remember because there's a folk belief that when you put things in glass, you've contained them and that it needs to be porous in order to do the spiritual work that you are presenting it with. And I think that that's funny and it's interesting because it's not true. You are only containing the physical aspect of the plant or the stone that you are putting in the jar. You are creating a container in which it must swirl and it must work together, right? So you are creating a boundary around these elements. Whatever you put in there together becomes greater than the sum of its parts because it has the opportunity to intermingle and to mix. But all of those things that you put in the jar have aspects that pass through the jar. Light passes through the jar, and light is a particle, right? As we are seeing it, it has a waveform and a particle form technically, but what we are seeing is the particle hitting our retinas, right? And that particle went through the glass in order to see our eyes. So, in order for us to see it with our eyes, so that glass is porous to fine particulate matter and spirit and energy, right? You would not contain an explosion in glass. So energy passes through. Um, so we can create little little spells in jars. We can do this for protection. We can do this for attracting money. We can do this for attracting love. We can do this for whatever we're working towards. We can create a little placeholder to contain our intention and the energy that we are trying to cultivate in order for its spirit to work on the higher planes. Now, if I were trying to work with the physical aspect of these materials, this would not be effective. If I filled a glass jar full of herbs and I tried to drink a tea that made for it, well, the water wouldn't be able to get through in order to make the tea, right? I could not employ a physical remedy with a glass jar, but it is not a physical remedy. It is a spiritual remedy. If you're looking for spiritual protections, you can use a jar. Um, Another thing I came across recently that I thought was interesting and relates to kind of a spiritual protection sort of topic. I wanted to discuss with you today is the idea of so you can use, many different things. I mean, you can use colors, right? So if you don't have black stones, you can use black cloth, right? You can wear black clothes. You can ring your eyes in black. That's something that goes all the way back to the Egyptians. It's a very ancient form of protection. You can wrap and conceal your head if you're looking to insulate your thoughts from interference. So if you have a tendency towards being like overstimulated, it can be a powerful spiritual tool to veil and protect your head, especially with black, using that color correspondence. So you can use herbs, you can use symbols. Trying to spin back around because I lost that bit of my train of thought. There was using jars for protection. Yes. Check, 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 check. Um, Hmm. Well, I suppose it'll come back to me or it won't. But um, fundamentally, I think the most important takeaway that you can have from this entire discussion is that you are inherently powerful. You are inherently protected. You have all that you need at your fingertips that you can reach out to, and you are the most fearsome thing in the world. You do not have anything to fear from spiritual entities because you are the fearsome spiritual entity. And the most important remedy to being afraid is to be fearful, right? To be fearsome, right? So if you are feeling weak and powerless, work on feeling strong and powerful. And you will you will not have cause to feel weak and powerless. If you are feeling weak and powerless and you are using your energy to create oppressors and things to be afraid of, then you will continue to be afraid and weak and powerless. But you have the power and ability not to do that. You get to decide what you consume. You get to decide what you put in your body, what you let in your environment, who you have in your house, who you have on your social media, whose homes you go to visit, who you get presents for this holiday season. All of that is under your control and your authority, and you get to decide. You get to decide your diet and what you consume. You get to decide where your boundaries are and what is in your space and what you're letting in and what you're keeping out. You get to build your house and you get to decide who is allowed inside of it, right? You get to decide what thoughts you're going to consume, what music you're going to digest, what art you're going to view, what books you're going to read, what shows you're going to watch on television, right? So take an empowered and critical look at all of that and ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I consuming? What is it bringing me? And how can I take control and authority over that? How can I be aware of my own self and where my power lies and where it does not lie? And how can I use my energy and my time wisely, right? How can I choose intentionally what I'm doing, where I'm going, and with whom? And use what works for you and leave the rest. What works for you is regrettably not going to be the same thing as what works for someone else. And there is a fair amount of exploration and trial and error that you have to do in order to discover what works for you. And fundamentally, what worked for you 10 years ago is not going to work for you 10 years from now. It's going to evolve and it's going to change. And you're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn. You're going to spend time in the wrong places and with the wrong people. You're going to do some of the wrong things, and that's okay, because that's all a learning experience and that's all part and process of the all that is. And there is no good and bad people, and there are no good and bad things. There are only people and there are things, and there is your ability to decide which people and which things you would like to have around you. And so you get to decide your experience. If you close the door is closed, right? So you have been protected. Any time in your life that you have said, I don't believe in that, that is not real, then that door was closed to your experience. As soon as you open that door and you say, maybe I do believe in that, maybe that is real. Now that door is open and now you're accountable for protecting yourself. So when you empower yourself to step into a spiritual reality, don't forget to take your spiritual weaponry and your spiritual defenses. Do not be afraid to pick up that sword. What is it in our cultural landscape and cultural narrative about obtaining the weapons of office, right? You have your crown, you have your scepter, you have your sword, you have your firmaments, all of your armor and weaponry that are earned through divine action and right action, and spiritual service and spiritual justice. So take the time to explore all that you are and to remember that we are the most successful apex predators on this planet right now. We are not beings of love and light exclusively. We can choose to be loving and to embrace and to shine our light, but we are the most successful apex predators on the planet. So if you are afraid and you are fearful and you are feeling disempowered, remember that you are a fearsome animal. You are a fierce mother bear or father bear, that you may take up that sword and you may take it up in defense of yourself and in healing. You may cut away anything that doesn't serve, any relationships, patterns, thought processes, or beliefs. You may become the very best fire-breathing dragon that lives within you, and you may do so in service to your own truth and your own light and your own authenticity, and you do not need any external approval. There is nothing outside of yourself that you lack within you. And you can take that and use it, right? So are there demons? Are there spirits? Are there more on heaven and earth than is dreamt of in our philosophy, Horatio? It is not for me to tell you. That is for you to decide. We are in a participatory universe, which is that there is no objective reality. There was only the observer and the reality that they're perceiving, and the ability to contain different perspectives in order to try to perceive something larger out of the knowledge. But as far as any objective experience that one can say is correct and true, and then everything else is wrong, nope, things just are. And you get to decide how you wish to view them and how you wish to perceive them and how you wish to move amongst them. But there are some well-trodden pathways that have been empowered by the consciousness of many seekers that have gone before, and you can use those. You can use those pathways, and I offer mine as an option for you and as a choice and as another light and another perspective that you can use to enrich your own. But may you be fierce. May you be powerful. May you be strong. May you be protected. May you know that you are safe and know that you are love. And the world doesn't need more love. The world is love. It's already there. It's already there. There is love, love in the dark, love in the light. There is love in the dying and love in the grieving. There is power in growth. There is power in softness and in mercy. May you find today what you need, and may you learn to be not afraid.